On the last day of high school, two beautiful young ladies wrote their phone numbers in my yearbook and said, "Keep in touch." Now, I don't know what that means per se, but best believe I was going to call those numbers and find out what it meant for me and my future. And that's what this video is about, the story of what happened that summer when I called those two numbers. So, I see the numbers, two beautiful ladies, keep in touch. One says, and it's signed lovingly, lovingly Jennifer. And this particular Jennifer is a celebrity, not a A-list celebrity, I'd say maybe a C-list celebrity. We had the same agent back then. And she was really cool, and she knew we had the same agent. So I was like, okay, there's something that might be here. Very beautiful. Then the other one was a lovely lady that my close friend took to prom. And so I was really curious on that because she knew that I kind of dug her. She wasn't with my buddy anymore. She was single. And I figured this was my shot. My parents and brother, my parents had gone to Italy for several weeks, and my brother was in California, so it was just me. I had the house, and I had these two numbers. So, what happened? So the first one, Jennifer, she's the one that signed it lovingly. Keep in touch, lovingly, Jennifer. So I was like, okay, this is going to be something. This is my chance to finally get some validation, right? And so I called the number. This is back when, no one had cell phones. You had to call their house, and her mother answered, and Jennifer was out working in the garden. They had a garden. She came to the phone and said hi, and I said, "It's Nick. I figured maybe we should hang out this summer." And she said, "Why?" And that kind of throws you off, right? I said, "I don't know, you said keep in touch, and I'm keeping in touch. We have the same agent, and I figured if one of us becomes something later, it'd be nice that we knew each other better." And she said, "You can just show people your yearbook." I said, "Yes." And then she's like, "I gotta go, I'm working in the garden." She hung up the phone, and I was like, well, okay, that's not gonna work. She was lovely. So next up was Melinda. And Melinda, she had her little number down and she had a heart. She'd drawn a heart there and said, keep in touch. And so I was like, okay, what did I learn from the Jennifer thing that I can apply to this? And then so I decided to be a little more aggressive because it might work, right? And so I actually said this. I called, she answered, and I said, "Hey Melinda, it's Nick. As you know, I'm studying to be a chef," because at the time I was studying to be a chef. I said, "As you know, I'm studying to be a chef, so I would like to invite you over to my house for lunch and sex." That's what I said to her. And she said, "Okay, what day were you thinking and what time?" And I was like, what? Is this working? And I said, "Do you understand what I said? I'm inviting you for a lunch. I will make you a lunch, and then sex. We'll have sex." And she said, "What day were you thinking?" And I was like, Tuesday, and then she's like, "Okay, what time?" I was like, "Okay, well, around lunchtime." Because she worked at a place that wasn't too far. And so she said, "Okay, I'll come over on my lunch." And I was like, "For lunch and sex?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'll see you Tuesday at," I think it was 1 o'clock. 1. I was like, oh my God, what? It had been that simple? My whole life, all I had to do was just ask? This is what it's come down to? I've been wasting so much time, right? So I was so excited, but at the same time, mind blown because what? Okay, so So, and I had been studying to be a chef, and I was like, I always made like breakfasts and dinners, but I never ate lunch myself. So I was like, what do people have for lunch? In hindsight, I would just cook a brunch or a dinner for lunch, but I didn't think about that. So I was trying to figure out what should I do, because I think in her mind, the highlight was the meal. And in my mind, the highlight was the sex, right? So I had to make this perfect. So what I did was I figured I was going to theme the house for this event. And so back in the day, Miami Vice was a big show back then. And so I got my little Miami Vice outfit because I wanted something, relaxed and breathable, but casual and easy to take off, because in my mind, the speed at which you could get undressed factored in to the whole thing. And so I had some like white pants and like a kind of a tropical shirt that I was set aside for that. And then I wanted it to be like we're on the ocean, right, on the beach. So they had these dual cassette players. So one cassette was Ocean Waves, and then you can play the other cassette at the same time. The other cassette was steel drum bands. And so I had that like balance the sound out so it would create an atmosphere, right? And I cleaned the entire house because I was like, we might be going at it anywhere in here. So everything needs to be cleaned just in case. And then I had some breath mints and some Banaka back in the day, just in case. And I still hadn't thought about like the food, what I was gonna do, because everything else was more important than that. And then I had some candles on the table because we were going to do like a candlelight lunch. See, I was really overthinking this. The hindsight is 2020. Give me a little break here. And so I was like, well, what should we eat? And I was like, well, it doesn't matter if I don't cook per se, because we're having the sex. And so I went to the store to look for ingredients, and then I saw, oh, I know what I should do. I'll just get a pizza. And I got a Totino's pizza. And at the time, Totino's wasn't even using real cheese back in 1992. They were using like a soy cheese. And the pizza, I think, was like 77 cents. So I got that. And so the day came. And I had my outfit on, steel drum bands, ocean waves, candles lit. And I was like, is she going to show up? Preheat the oven, throw that Totino's pizza in there. Doorbell rings. I open it up. She is looking amazing. These little tiny little white shorts on, this little blouse, and just hair done, makeup good, everything. She looked really, really gorgeous. And she came in, she was like, all right, let's do this. And I was like, thank you so much. This is the best day of my life. And so she's like, well, what are we having? And I said, it's in the oven. And she went and she looked and she's like, what's going on here? And I was like, it's Totino's, it's fine. And some Crystal Light. Crystal Light was a drink. I don't even think they sell it anymore. I don't know. But it was like some kind of sugar-free punch or something. And so she had some of that. The pizza came out, and then we're just sitting there eating the pizza. And I'm trying to, be suave and cool. And I was like thinking, are we gonna get it on one of these kitchen counters, or how's this gonna go down? And so she has a couple pieces of pizza, and then she says, all right, well, gotta get back to work. And I was like, well, hold on. She goes, what? And I said, this was supposed to be lunch and sex. And then she said, you were supposed to cook. And then I was like, okay, yes. Can I have another chance? And she said, I gotta go. And then I walked her out to her car, and I was like, what can I do? What can I do to make this up? And she said, call me tomorrow. And I said, okay. And I just stood there in the driveway. She pulled off, and I was like, this did not go how I had planned. And then the next day I called her, and she was like, what's going on? And I said, oh, just waiting to see what we can do. And she said, well, I just finished having sex with my boyfriend. And I said, goodbye, Melinda. And I hung up the phone, and I was hurt. And my boss at the time, I worked at a movie theater, I went and I told him, and he goes, Totino's Pizza? What? Why would you do that? I said, I don't know why. But I wonder, in hindsight, I wonder if I would have made a spectacular meal, would something have happened? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But I learned something that day. Don't do that. And I really overthought that. But that's that story. So do with that what you will.